Hi, I'm John from How to Teach English Online from Anywhere. I think one of the most common questions that I get asked is how much money can I make teaching English online? And of course, that's a valid question before you look at doing any activity. You want to, any income generating activity, you want to have an idea of what you can get out of it. And just to cut to the chase, I think that it's realistic to expect that even starting out that you can make $15 to $20 an hour US teaching English online. There are ways to boost that up, and I'll talk about a few of those a little bit later here in the video. But I think starting out that to set realistic expectations, that's realistic earnings. Now, whether $15 to $20 US sounds good to you obviously is going to depend on your particular situation. You know, if you live in a big city in a developed country, you know, if you live in London or Toronto or New York, you know, that's only going to get you so far, right? But I think that even in, you know, if you live in a developed country, a more expensive country, you know, this can be a nice side income or a nice retirement income. And for those of you who are looking at teaching English online as a way to perhaps live abroad for a while or do some extended travel, it can definitely work for you. There are actually a lot of places out in the world that are pretty inexpensive, especially if you do slow travel, right? Stay in a place for a while, rent an apartment, and so forth. I mean, let's look at my example, and I'll give you a tour of my where I live here in a little bit. But you know, I teach, depending on the week, between 20-25 hours a week. It covers all my expenses. I have a nice little apartment. Nothing's, you know, fancy, but it's very nice. It's modern, one bedroom, fully furnished. I'm 4 blocks from the beach, and you know, my teaching pays for this, and I have a nice little life here. I have health insurance. I don't, you know, I eat well, and I have fun. And I support all of this by teaching 20-25 hours a week. And so, you know, you need to understand that, you know, depending on where you live and so forth, that this, you know, this, you can have a pretty good lifestyle teaching English online. And, you know, money aside, it's not that hard. You know, it's like anything else. You have to get started. You have to learn a little bit, but it's not that difficult. And so you can have quite a nice life doing this. Now, when we talk about teaching English online, there are essentially 2 routes that you can follow. One is to teach for an online school or schools, and there are so many of these today. You know, one big one that comes to mind immediately, for example, would be VIP Kid, and you know, they focus on teaching kids in China. And you can do pretty well with them. I have a friend, Mike, who works with VIP Kid, and classes are short. They're 25 to 30 minutes. You make $10 a class, so obviously it's like 20 bucks an hour. But they're bonuses too. So this is one of the ways that you can increase your income is if you get good ratings from the kids or their parents. And also if you work on in peak hours, like, you know, weekends when there's high demand, you can get bonuses. So you could effectively get, you know, $24 an hour, which isn't bad. It isn't bad. So again, teaching via school is one route that you can go, and a lot of teachers, especially newer teachers, like that because it relieves you of the responsibility of having to look for students or collect payments. Now, me myself, I am independent, and I like what I do. I make about that same amount of money. Could probably make more, but I have a nice, you know, I'm comfortable in what I do. And you know, to get an idea of what you could teach, make teaching as an independent, you know, you can go, for example, to some Facebook groups, and, you know, for different areas. Let's say you're thinking about teaching professionals in Colombia, for example. You can go to Facebook groups and for teachers in Colombia, teachers in Bogota, teachers in Medellin, and find out, you know, what teachers make in those areas. Another very good way to assess what you could make in a particular niche, a particular market, and I have another video here in the channel about determining a niche. But another very good way to do that would be to look at what I call matchmaker sites, which are sites where they're a lot like dating sites, really. You post a profile, teacher profile, and then people who are looking for teachers, come and scout those out. Some of the big ones are italki, Verbal Planet, Verbling, and a friend of mine who's also a teacher put me onto one called Tutor Select, which I want to look at because it seems like the teachers on that site earn good money, better than average. I mean, I saw some for posting at 35 and 40 bucks an hour. It could be that they're targeting like students in developed countries, which would be a good strategy, right? You could look for example, I live in Brazil now. I teach Brazilians, but I'm looking at perhaps using Teacher Select as a way to find Brazilians who now live in the U.S. or Canada and want to beef up their English. So they could, because they're living in developed countries, they could afford to pay more. So that's a strategy, another way that you could beef up your income. While we're on that topic of how can you bump this $15 to $20 up, look at a market like that where the students are in a developed country. That's one thing. I'm also looking at small groups. Now, I actually started looking at teaching small groups because my schedule's pretty full right now. I don't really want to accept a lot more students, but I still get referrals pretty frequently, and just got one yesterday, and so sometimes I pass those off to other teachers, to my friends, but I'm looking at perhaps starting some groups. So if I can find some students who are essentially at the same level with similar objectives, teaching small groups, charging each student less than I would for an individual class, but still I would make more per hour. So I'm looking at groups of 4 to 6 is something. So that's one way to boost income. Now, another way that I kind of increase my income and keep it stable too, because something that I neglected to mention is that in this kind of teaching online, whether you're teaching through a school or whether you're teaching independently, most typically teachers are paid by the class, which is usually by the hour, by the half hour, by the hour. In contrast to, for example, if you went to, South Korea or Taiwan and you were working for a school there, teaching in a physical school, you would be paid a salary typically and expected to work a certain number of hours per week. This kind of teaching, by contrast, you're paid by the class, by the hour almost always. So one of the issues that teachers have often is trying to keep a stable income. I resolved this a few years ago by going to a fixed payment system. So all of my students now pay me at the beginning of the month, okay, for that month. Now, what they pay me is based on my target objective per hour, okay, but it is a monthly payment. So if they have classes once a week, they pay me this amount. If they have classes twice a week, they pay me twice that. And it works well. It works well for them, and it works well for me. They know how much to budget every month. I know how much I'm going to receive. It makes record keeping for both sides really easy. We don't have to say, okay, well, that was a cancellation. Do you get credit for that cancellation? Was it a last minute cancellation? No. Okay, and there's nothing, I don't want to say adversarial. I mean, there's never a question about, well, do I owe a class? Do I not? It's very, very easy. And what I do when a student can't have a class is we just reschedule, and that's fine with me. It's easy to reschedule classes online, much easier than when you're giving classes face to face. And I get, and my income is protected. So I just shift the class around on my schedule. Everybody's happy. The student doesn't lose. I don't lose. So I really encourage you to look at doing that, at charging your students a fixed amount per month at the beginning of a month. I think it's a really good system. And I talk about all this in more detail in section 5 of my course, How to Teach English Online from Anywhere. Section 5 is the section about going independent, and most of it's about marketing, but I talk also about setting your price and your policies and so forth. Section 4 is about working for online schools, so I talk about that a bit as well if you want to go that route. And as I think I mentioned, a lot of newer students, a lot of newer teachers prefer to work for schools first, kind of get grounded, get comfortable with the whole thing, and then to kind of migrate into teaching independently. Okay, so that's a bit about what you can expect to earn, and I'm going to shift a little bit here. I want to show you again, like what my life is like here as a teacher. And again, I'll create a well, you know what? Let me just create a separate video about how you can live if you want to travel the world. I know that some of you watching here, you're retirees, you're happy living in Peoria, you want to stay in Peoria, you just want to generate a little bit of side income, or you're a university student and you don't want to work in dining halls or whatever, or down at TGI Fridays. This is teaching online is a good way to pick up some decent money working from the comfort of your own home. On the other hand, I know that some of you, adventurous sorts like myself, get itchy feet and you would like to explore the world. And teaching English online can be great for you as well. So let me create a separate video that kind of shows you how you can make your dreams of world travel happen by teaching English online. And it's real. It's definitely a possibility. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of the easiest and best ways, most realistic ways for most of us to fund extended world travel. Okay, enough for now. I hope this video has been helpful. We'll talk to you again soon.